Title. She said he saved her life, but he had no reflection. The Stranger in the Rain. It was the kind of night that seemed stitched together by nightmares. Rain tore through the sky like nails scratching against glass, and thunder growled low and constant like something ancient waking from sleep. Evelyn's boots splashed in puddles as she ran, soaked to bone, her breath ragged from panic more than exhaustion. She didn't dare look back. Moment ago, her car had died in the middle of Hollow Creek Road, the long, forest-flanked stretch of asphalt that twisted through the rural outskirts of town. One moment the engine was humming, and the next, it just stopped. Her phone had no signal, and within minutes, a shadow had moved in the trees. A shape, human maybe, or maybe not. She hadn't stayed long enough to find out. Now, her lungs burned as she sprinted down the winding road. But then she slipped, her ankle twisting sharply beneath her. She fell, face first into the cold mud. When she looked up, the shape was closer, slowly stepping from the trees. Her pulse screamed. Her body wouldn't move. Then suddenly he was there, a man, standing between her and the thing in the trees. He didn't speak. He didn't even flinch. Just stood tall, broad-shouldered, his long black coat whipping behind him in the wind like wings. The shadow in the forest stopped, stared, then retreated, without a sound. And just like that, the storm seemed quieter. "Are you okay?" the man asked, kneeling beside her. His voice was smooth and deep, carrying warmth even in the bitter rain. Evelyn nodded, though her body trembled. He smiled. "You're safe now." Back in her apartment, Evelyn couldn't stop thinking about him. She hadn't caught his name. In the rush, she barely remembered to thank him. All she knew was that he'd appeared out of nowhere, helped at her feet, and walked with her for nearly an hour through the storm until they found a gas station with a working phone. And yet, something about him nagged at her memory. Maybe it was the way the rain never seemed to touch him, or how quiet his footsteps were, or the way the attendant at the gas station had stared, mouth open, eyes wide, before slowly looking away, pretending he hadn't seen anything at all. Evelyn thought maybe it was just adrenaline and fear clouding her thoughts. She shook the strangeness away and curled up in bed, whispering a quiet thank you to the man who saved her. She saw him again the next day. Evelyn had just finished work at the bookstore and stepped out into the cool dusk air. He was leaning against the lamppost outside, arms crossed casually like he'd been waiting all day. "You," she said, blinking. "How did you?" He smiled. "You look like you could use some company." She laughed nervously. "Do you just show up like this?" He tilted his head. "Only when I'm needed." They walked through the park, talked about music, childhood, old dreams. Evelyn found herself opening up more than she had with anyone in years. There was something disarming about him, familiar, even though she knew they'd never met before. Still, that itch of wrongness returned. She offered him coffee from the corner cafe. He declined, said he didn't drink warm things. When she glanced at the cafe's window to admire the reflection of the golden evening, she paused. She could see herself, the tables, the sky, but not him. He was gone from the glass. That night, Evelyn stood in her bathroom, hands gripping the sink. Her breath came slow and shallow. Behind her, the mirror showed her apartment, the towel on the rack, the flickering candlelight. But again, no reflection where he should have been standing earlier when he'd walked her to her door. Was she imagining it? Sleep came in restless waves. She dreamed of deep water and faces without eyes, of whispers in a language she didn't understand. When she woke, he was sitting in the armchair across her room. She gasped, heart seizing in her chest. "I didn't mean to frighten you," he said softly. What are you doing in my apartment?" He stood, calm and controlled. "You called out in your sleep. You were scared." "I didn't call anyone." He stepped forward. Slowly, "You said my name." She blinked. "You never told me your name." For the first time, his face flickered, like a film reel skipping a frame. Then it returned to that perfect calm. "Then how did you know to whisper it?" Evelyn stood frozen. She wanted to run, but her legs were locked in place. "You're not real," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I saved your life, Evelyn." Yes, but you're not. Her voice cracked. I saw the mirror. You weren't in it. You don't cast a reflection. He tilted his head again, a slow, inhuman movement. Reflections lie. That's what they do. They show you only what you think you are. They can't capture everything. Tears brimmed in her eyes. What are you? He stepped closer, but the light from the window no longer touched him. It bent around him, avoided him. I was once like you, he said quietly, but I gave that up a long time ago. Now, I watch. I protect, especially the ones who are marked. Marked, she whispered. He reached into his coat and pulled out something small, round, old, and rusted. A locket, her grandmother's locket, the one buried with her mother. She stumbled backward. How do you have that? I didn't take it. You brought it back. She shook her head violently. You're lying. He didn't flinch. There's more you don't remember. Things you've forgotten. Things that were taken. You weren't supposed to die that night on the road. But something was coming for you. I stepped in. And what? Now I owe you. His eyes darkened. No, I owe you. Later, Evelyn would try to explain away what happened. That he vanished when she blinked. That the locket remained on the floor. That the candle in her room had gone out, and every mirror was cracked. She told herself it was trauma, sleep deprivation, stress. But deep down, she knew the truth was stranger. She researched ancient folklore, guardian spirits, omens, entities that existed only for those who saw them. Some called them watchers. Some said they were demons in disguise. Some said they were fragments of the soul that could split off in moments of death, bound to the person they were once part of. Whatever he was, she was sure of one thing. He had no reflection, because maybe he wasn't meant to exist at all. And still, every time Evelyn looked into the mirror from that night on, she half expected to see someone standing behind her, watching, waiting. His name wasn't in any record. The next morning, Evelyn visited the local library. She hadn't stepped foot inside since college, but something told her that books, real books, might have answers that the internet didn't. The librarian, a thin man with gray eyes and an unusually quiet presence, gave her a peculiar look when she asked about folklore and urban legends involving reflections and invisible men. He led her to an old wing of the library. Dust rose in the air as she pulled books from the shelves, leather-bound journals, crumbling folklore compilations, a book titled Echoes of the Unseen with no author listed. The more she read, the deeper the chill in her bones grew. Entities without reflections, referred to in whispers across cultures. Guardians, parasites, shadows of forgotten souls. Some were benevolent, tied to acts of trauma or death narrowly avoided. Others were not. She copied pages into her notebook, hand shaking slightly. One passage stood out. They often appear when death is near, interwoven with fate like threads of shadow. The saved may feel gratitude, but beware, for the price of life is rarely paid in full at once. Her fingers tightened around the paper. She needed to know who he was, what he was, so she retraced every step since that night, starting with the gas station. The clerk at the counter was different this time, a young woman chewing gum and scrolling on her phone. When Evelyn asked if she remembered the man she'd been with during the storm, the woman blinked, frowning. You were alone, miss. Came in shivering, mud all over you. You asked for a phone. That was it. No, I wasn't alone, Evelyn said, voice rising. He walked me here. He stood right there. The woman shook her head. There's no security footage, if that's what you're thinking. Storm knocked our cameras out. But trust me, I'd remember if someone had been with you. It was just you. She left, heart pounding, trying to convince herself the woman was wrong. But then she remembered the cracked mirror in her bedroom, the locket, the dream she had last night, standing in her childhood bedroom, her mother whispering from the closet, "Don't trust a man without a past." She decided to go back to where it all began, Hollow Creek Road. The forest there was thicker than she remembered. The trees leaned in too close, like they were listening. Her car was gone, already towed or stolen. But she remembered the exact spot where she'd fallen. Her boots sunk into the same mud. It was quiet now, too quiet. She stood there, alone, and then not footsteps, but the absence of sound. He appeared behind her, just as before, not walking, not arriving, just there. "You shouldn't have come back here," he said. She turned slowly. "You lied to me. You made me think you were real." "I never said I was real. I said I saved you." "Were you a ghost? A demon?" He stepped closer, and for a second his face shimmered, changing. Not morphing, not melting, but shifting, like different versions of him were overlaid at once. Old, young, pale, dark, all flickering. "I was what you needed, in that moment, and you were already marked." "Marked for what?" But he didn't answer. Instead, he held out the locket again. This time, she took it. Inside was a photograph, not of her mother like before, but of herself. But not her exactly. A version of her. Slightly different eyes. A faint scar on the brow. She had never had that scar. "Who is this?" "That," he said softly, "is you?" "From before." "Before what?" "Before the drowning." Evelyn took a step back. "I never drowned." He looked at her, eyes full of something too deep to be called sorrow. "You did. For 23 seconds. You were 6. You fell into the lake. Your mother pulled you out. You never remembered." She opened her mouth to argue, but fragments of memory slithered to the surface. Cold, darkness, a whispering voice in the water, a promise, and then her mother's hands. "Why does that matter now?" she asked. "Because something else pulled you back before she did." She clutched the locket tighter. "You..." "No, not me. But I followed you after that. Watched. Protected. Others would have come for you." "Others like what?" But he didn't answer. Instead, he turned and began walking deeper into the forest. Against her instincts, she followed. They walked for what felt like an hour. The forest growing older with every step. Trees became gnarled, the air colder. And then they came upon an old stone building, half buried in roots, roof sunken, windows shattered. "This is where they live," he said. "Who?" He pointed to the mirrors inside, rows and rows of them, hung like windows on the inner walls. But each one reflected something else. Not the room, not Evelyn, but twisted, snarling shapes behind the glass. They wait behind reflections. Some escape when the cracks form. Most don't want to leave, but some find ways. She stepped toward one mirror and saw a version of herself inside. Pale, eyes black, lips whispering words she couldn't hear. The figure looked at her and smiled. "That's not me," Evelyn whispered. "Not yet," he said. She turned to him. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because the storm wasn't the end. It was a beginning. The others felt your soul shift again that night. You were marked for death a second time. That's why I came. I don't want this." He nodded. "Neither did I." And for the first time, she saw him, truly saw him, a man who had once been human, eyes full of agony, trapped between choices, between deaths, between identities. "You were like me. I still am. Can I stop it?" He hesitated. "You might delay it, but some fates are too old to rewrite. Still, there are rules, loopholes." She looked into the nearest mirror. The other Evelyn was still there, whispering, and behind her, another figure moved, tall, faceless, watching. "I've seen him," she said. He stiffened. "If he's found you, then it's already begun." "Then help me stop it." "I will. But if we fail, Evelyn, there won't be a third chance." Later that night, Evelyn returned home. Every mirror in her apartment was gone. She had shattered them all. Every screen covered. Every window blacked out. But still, sometimes she'd hear a voice humming in the reflection of a spoon, or catch the glint of another face in the corner of her eye when brushing her teeth. He visited her again, never when she called, only when she was alone, afraid, or slipping into memories that weren't hers. And always the same warning: don't look too long into the glass. It's looking back. One night, She dreamed of drowning again. But this time, the hand that pulled her up wasn't her mother's, and the water didn't let go as easily. Whispers behind the glass. Evelyn started hearing things. It began as faint murmurs, like radio static in the next room. Sometimes they came when she was doing the dishes, other times when she stood near windows after dark. The whispers weren't loud, but they were persistent, sliding beneath her skin like cold mist. She could never make out the words, but she knew they weren't meant for anyone else. They were calling her, learning her. She covered every mirror, every shiny surface. Even polished doorknobs and black screens were hidden behind fabric or tape, but the voices didn't care. They found new ways in reflections and puddles, the glint of a spoon, her own shadow moving slightly out of sync. She called in sick for work. She avoided friends. No one would believe her if she tried to explain that something was watching from the other side of the world. He returned 2 nights later, standing in her hallway without warning. Her apartment was dark, lit only by flickering candlelight, and he looked even more like a silhouette now than a man. "They're getting stronger," he said. "I can feel it," she whispered. "They've chosen you. They think you'll break." Evelyn stared at him. "What happens if I do?" He looked away. "Then you become like them." She didn't ask what that meant. She didn't want to know. He walked to her living room window, pulled back the curtain slightly. The moonlight reflected in his eyes, though still no shadow followed him. They live in the in-between. Reflections. Dreams. The parts of you you've forgotten. "I don't understand," she said. "Why me?" "Because you touched the other side. Twice." "The drowning," she said quietly. He nodded. "And again on Hollow Creek Road." "Then why save me?" He turned to her. "Because I was like you once. Because you're not ready. Because maybe you'll be the one who figures out how to sever the link." "Link to what?" He opened his coat and pulled out a photograph. It was old, sepia-toned. A woman in a long dress stood in a room filled with mirrors. Every mirror reflected a different version of her. Some smiled, some screamed. "This was my sister," he said. Evelyn stared. What happened to her? She got curious. She listened too long. One day, her reflection didn't mimic her anymore. It stayed behind when she walked away. That night, she disappeared. I tried to find her. I ended up here. Trapped. Bound. Evelyn swallowed hard. "So what do we do?" "There's a place, a crack in the veil, where their world bleeds into ours. I can take you there. But once we go in, we may not come back." She hesitated. "And if we don't go?" "They'll come to you instead." She looked at her apartment, at the candles, the draped sheets, the shadows. "Let's go." They left at midnight. He drove a car that didn't exist. Or at least, it didn't belong in this decade. A black sedan with no plates, no dashboard lights, and windows that reflected nothing. She didn't ask questions. The night outside the window never changed. Just trees, fog, more trees. No other cars. No towns. Just endless road. They stopped in an abandoned motel on the edge of nowhere. The sign was faded. Mirror Pines Inn. He handed her a key. "Room 9. There's a mirror in there," he said. "But not like the others. It's a gate. It leads somewhere between." "Between what?" "Here and the truth." She stepped into the room. The wallpaper peeled. The bed was sunken. But the mirror across the room, it was pristine. Too pristine. Its surface shimmered faintly like water. It didn't reflect her movements right. When she raised her hand, her reflection hesitated, then followed. A beat too late. She stepped closer. The reflection stared back. And then it blinked. But she hadn't. She turned to call him. But he was gone. The door was shut behind her, the knob ice cold. When she looked back, her reflection was smiling. Her own face. But wrong. Its eyes were darker. The smile too wide. Then it lifted its hand and beckoned her forward. Her feet moved without permission. Closer, closer. And when her fingers touched the glass, it wasn't glass anymore. It was soft, like skin. The surface gave way, swallowing her whole. Evelyn fell, not like gravity, but like sinking into thought. Images flew past her. Her mother crying, a red bicycle, the cold lake, storm clouds, the dark road. Then the motel again. Then nothing. She landed hard in a place that wasn't a room, but wasn't open space either. Gray mist rolled around her feet. The ground was made of polished black stone, like the inside of a giant mirror. Dozens of reflections surrounded her, but none were hers. Each one was a version of her. One was missing an eye. One was bleeding. One was laughing manically. One stood completely still, staring directly at her with fury in its gaze. She tried to move, but the ground rippled beneath her. The air was thick and humming with whispers. She wasn't alone. Then came the scratching. From behind. Long, slow claws on glass. She turned slowly. The man was there, but not the same. His eyes were empty, hollow, his coat shredded, body scorched black like burnt paper. He opened his mouth, and a woman's scream came out. She backed away. "What happened to you?" He didn't answer. Instead, dozens of figures began to emerge from the fog. Not walking, sliding. All of them were her, twisted, broken, half-formed. One had no mouth. One had too many. One crawled. They surrounded her. The burned man stepped forward. "You let them in." "No," she shouted. "You brought me here." His body flickered, became dozens of versions. All wrong, all decayed, all angry. They screamed as one, and then the mirror beneath her shattered. She fell again. But this time, she was screaming too. She woke up in her bathtub, clothes soaked, water red. Not blood, just red, like dye. The room was cold. Her mirror cracked. Her phone buzzed on the floor. A text. Unknown number. "You were gone too long. They saw you." Another text followed. "It's not over." She looked into the mirror. Her reflection stared back, smiling. The ones that were your face. The smile in the mirror didn't vanish. Even after Evelyn turned away, it stayed there, hanging like a stain burned into the glass. Her real face was pale, breath uneven, eyes wide. But that other version of her grinned like it knew something she didn't, something it was waiting for. She backed out of the bathroom slowly. Her apartment was silent, too silent. No cars outside, no humming refrigerator, no neighbors upstairs, just her pulse pounding in her ears. She reached for her phone again. Another message. "They walk freely now. Your reflection was only the first." Her hands trembled. She locked her front door, not sure what she was keeping out anymore. Or in. Outside, the streetlights buzzed and flickered like dying fireflies. The silence wasn't just in her apartment. It stretched down the block. Not a single light on in any window. No voices. No footsteps. Just the hollow hush of something watching. She crept to her kitchen, every step echoing too loud. The spoon on the counter vibrated slightly, its surface catching her eye. Her reflection blinked. She didn't. She turned it over and flung it across the room. The sound it made wasn't metal. It was a scream. She froze. Then the doorbell rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Her body moved against her will. She inched toward it. The peephole showed nothing. No person. No shadow. Just empty hallway. She opened the door a crack. A mirror was leaning against the hallway wall. She hadn't placed it there. It was tall, ornate, and old. The frame was carved with twisting vines and faces too faded to be human. The glass surface was black, like it hadn't been polished in centuries. Something knocked from inside the mirror. She slammed the door shut, heart racing, backed away. Her TV blinked on. Static, then a voice. Familiar. "You left the door open, Evelyn." She spun around. The door was still shut. She turned back to the screen and saw herself. But not here. Not now. The version on the screen was wearing her clothes, but soaked in mud and blood. Her eyes were wrong, completely white. She stood in what looked like Evelyn's kitchen, but everything behind her was mirrored backward. The figure raised a hand and waved. Then she whispered, "You're almost ready." The screen went black. Her phone vibrated again. If you see yourself in a place you haven't been, run. Evelyn screamed and hurled the phone against the wall. It didn't break. Instead, it flashed one more message. They're in. That night, Evelyn didn't sleep. She boarded up her windows. She unplugged her TV, her laptop, covered every screen, broke the rest. But the reflections still came, not just in mirrors now, but in her dreams, in the corner of her eye, in the pictures on her wall, in the glass of the microwave, in her eyes. She went back to the library, but it wasn't the same. The man with the gray eyes wasn't there anymore. In his place stood someone else. A woman. Familiar. Too familiar. Evelyn froze. The woman was her. Not similar. Not close. Identical. Down to the coat, the haircut, the bruised knuckles she'd gotten from breaking the mirror. "Hi," the other Evelyn said softly. "I've been waiting." Evelyn backed away. "You're not real." The other her smiled. "That's what I said once." She walked forward, steps eerily soundless on the old wooden floor. "You think you're the first, that you're special, but you're just another version." "No. Every time one of us survives, another wakes up. That's the rule. The ones that die in the mirror, they get to stay dead. But the survivors, we multiply. And the more there are, the more the veil breaks. I don't want to be part of this," Evelyn whispered. "You already are. You opened the door. You looked too long. You answered." She reached into her coat and pulled out a shard of mirror. It shimmered in her palm, sharp and pulsing like a living thing. "You can end it now," she said. "Cut your image away. Free your name." Evelyn ran. She didn't stop until she reached the outskirts of town, until the air stopped humming, until the buildings didn't whisper. But everywhere she went, mirrors were waiting, in cars, in windows, in the eyes of strangers that looked too long. She started seeing others, too. Copies, people wearing her face, at the grocery store, in traffic, on TV, but only when no one else was around. She caught one watching her in a bathroom at a gas station. The reflection in the mirror didn't move. It just smiled, holding up a finger to its lips. Evelyn smashed it with her elbow. Glass exploded outward, and behind the shards she saw them, hundreds of them, crowded behind the mirror space. All her, all broken, all watching. One night, the man came back. The original one, or so she thought. He looked older, worn, tired. "You're changing," he said. "I don't know who I am anymore." "That's good," he said. "It means you still are someone. The ones who forget entirely, they become the others. What do they want? To be whole, to wear your life, to exist in this world without cracks. Why me? Because you're the one who keeps slipping through. Every time they try to replace you, you come back. That makes you dangerous." She looked down at her hands. They didn't feel like hers anymore. "What do I do?" He opened his hand. The same mirror shard. "It's not about killing them. It's about cutting yourself loose. Let the reflections have what they want. A hollow shell. But your soul can run. To where?" He looked up, and for the first time, she saw fear in his eyes. To where they can't follow. That night, Evelyn walked back to Mirapine's Inn. The door was unlocked. Room 9 was waiting. She sat in front of the mirror. The other Evelyn was already there. Waiting. "Ready?" the reflection asked. Evelyn raised a shard. And for the first time, her reflection mirrored her exactly. The hollow that speaks. Evelyn pressed a shard of mirror against her palm. It pulsed faintly, like it had a heartbeat. Her reflection did the same, eyes locked on hers. Perfect synchronization. No delay, no smirk, no glitch. For the first time since this began, her mirror self was behaving exactly like her. And that was somehow worse. The shard sliced into her skin. Blood welled up, slow and dark, dripping down onto the floor. The mirror shimmered in response, rippling like water disturbed by a breeze. Evelyn didn't flinch. She felt nothing, just numb. Her reflection bled too. Then it smiled. A slow, crooked smile that didn't belong to her at all. She backed away. No, no, no. The mirror began to breathe. Not metaphorically, literally. Each exhale fogged the glass. Each inhale cleared it again. Something alive was behind it now. Something big. Too big to be contained in the frame. She could hear it. Wet gurgling, like lungs full of tar. She turned to run. But the motel room was gone. She was inside the mirror. The floor beneath her was black glass. Above, a sky filled with floating versions of herself. Some screaming, some limp, some clawing at the surface of unseen walls. A voice echoed in the vastness. We watched you. We wore you. Now you wear us. Dozens of hands reached up from beneath the glass floor. Some were hers. Some weren't. They grabbed at her ankles, her legs, her waist, pulling, chanting in broken versions of her voice. Evelyn, Evelyn, Evelyn. She kicked, screamed, thrashed. One of the hands shoved a mirror shard into her chest. She woke up. She was on her apartment floor, sweating, panting, bleeding from her hand. The TV was on, her reflection on the screen again, but this time she wasn't alone. Standing behind that version of her was him, but not as she remembered him. His eyes were hollow pits, his skin like rotting parchment, his mouth stitched shut. She whispered his name. The figure on screen slowly raised its head. He heard her, and then, behind her, on her side of the screen, footsteps. She turned fast. The apartment was empty, but the mirror over her fireplace was now wide open, like a door ajar. Wind blew from it, cold and damp, carrying the scent of moss and rust. And voices. So many voices. Some begged. Some laughed. One whispered, "You shouldn't have cut the thread." Evelyn stumbled backward. Her phone lit up on the couch. Unknown. It's not done. Not yet. Not until she agrees. She didn't know who she was. Until she looked in the mirror again. Her reflection was no longer mimicking her. It stood still, watching. Then it pointed upward. Evelyn looked at the ceiling. Something was crawling across it. Its limbs wrong, bent, stretched too far. Its face was a melting version of hers. It turned its head upside down to meet her eyes, and smiled. She ran, out of the apartment, down the hallway, into the street. But the world had changed. Every reflective surface was alive. Storefront windows rippled as she passed, following her with warped versions of her face. Cars reflected people that weren't in them. Billboards blinked with her own eyes. Puddles on the sidewalk whisper her name in different accents, different ages. A little girl with Evelyn's face stood by a lamppost, holding a balloon made of glass. "Don't run," she said. "Who are you?" Evelyn gasped. "You," the girl replied. "From before the lake." "I don't remember drowning." "You did," the girl said. "But something pulled you back. Something that liked your fear." Behind the girl, a tall version of Evelyn, older, thinner, paler, stepped out from a window. "She wants to go back," the older one said. "Let her." Evelyn backed away. Another version stepped out the side of a parked bus, her with no mouth. Another stepped from a sewer grate, her with burned eyes. Then another and another and another. They surrounded her, every direction, silent and still. The world held its breath, and Evelyn screamed. The sound shattered the air like glass, and everything stopped. She stood alone again, but the world was no longer real. She walked through the streets, and the buildings shifted like smoke. People didn't have faces. Cars didn't have tires. Everything was collapsing inward. She heard the man again, his voice echoing through the fog. "This is a final layer, Evelyn, where names dissolve, where nothing reflects because nothing is left." She spun around. He was there, but only as outline, flickering. She reached for him. He whispered, "There's still time," and then he vanished. At sunrise, Evelyn stood before a lake, still, silent, black as glass. She remembered this lake, or thought she did. The memory wasn't hers, but it felt like it belonged in her bones. She walked to the edge. Her reflection waited on the surface, smiling, not maliciously, just waiting. The reflection raised a hand. Evelyn raised hers, matching it. This time, they were one. She stepped forward, and the water didn't ripple. It opened, welcoming her back. The things beneath the surface. Evelyn stepped into the lake, and the world turned silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the thick, oppressive stillness of being watched by something ancient and patient. The surface closed above her like a lid, sealing the sky out, trapping her breath in her chest. But she wasn't drowning. She was floating downward. The water didn't feel wet. It felt like memory. Shadows moved past her, shapes she almost recognized. Her childhood bedroom, her high school hallway, the corner booth at the diner where she met him. But each one flickered like a film strip left in a fire too long. Distorted, reversed. Something brushed her arm. She turned sharply. A version of herself drifted beside her, eyes open, mouth sewn shut. Her skin was cracked like porcelain. Another floated past, dragging an anchor chain from her ankle. Another was still. Her chest caved in like she'd fallen from a great height. They didn't attack. They watched and whispered, not with mouths, but with presence. She chose to look. She opened the gate. She walked to the mirror and forgot which side she belonged to. Evelyn wanted to scream, but her voice was gone. Then, far below, a light, a doorway, swaying gently at the lake's bed. No handle, no frame, just an arch of bone and glass, pulsing faintly with white-blue light. She swam toward it, even as the water grew colder, thicker, darker. Her limbs ached, but the pull was stronger than fear. Just as she reached the arch, a hand grabbed her ankle. It was him, not the man with the gray eyes, but a hollowed-out, rotted version of him. Eyes weeping ink, teeth long and sharp, skin peeling back in ribbons. He dragged her down. The lake convulsed around them, filling with screaming versions of herself. Everyone she'd ever tried to forget. The liar, the coward, the dreamer, the violent one. They reached out with blackened hands and empty eyes, pulling at her skin, her thoughts, her name. But Evelyn kicked, twisted, bit. She reached the arch and pushed through. She landed hard on cold stone. No water, no light, just a vast hallway that stretched endlessly in both directions. The air was heavy with mildew and candle wax. Mirrors lined the walls, all covered in sheets of black velvet. The sound of slow, deliberate footsteps echoed from somewhere far off. She stood slowly. A whisper, not from her ears, but from inside her teeth, filled her skull. If you see your reflection now, it won't be yours anymore. She walked. The hallway bent, twisted, turned back and on itself. At one corner, a mirror had its cover half fallen. She couldn't help it. She looked. It wasn't her face. It was the thing that had pretended to be him. And now it wore her smile, her face, her life. It pressed a finger against the glass from the other side. The mirror cracked. She ran. Doors began appearing along the corridor, each one humming softly. Behind one, a classroom, desks rotting, a teacher with her face turning slowly, chalk squealing on the board, lessons and forgetting. Behind another, a hospital bed, her mother gasping. Except Evelyn had never seen her mother like this, had never been in that room, yet she knew it. Behind another, a church, and Evelyn on the altar, sacrificed, worshipped, replaced. She slammed the door shut. She finally reached a spiral staircase made of bones. The walls pulsed like they were alive, veins of mirror running through them. At the bottom, a single door, glowing red. Carved into it were the words, "Only what's hollow may pass." Her phone vibrated in her pocket. She hadn't used it since the lake, but now on its cracked screen, "You brought too much of yourself." The phone burst into flame in her hand. She dropped it. The fire didn't burn her. It burned something inside her. Memories. Her name. Her voice. Her first kiss. The scent of her father's jacket. The way she cried at night in the dark. All of it curling into smoke. She bent over, heaving, and from her mouth fell a mirror shard, still warm. She picked it up. The door clicked open. Beyond it, a chamber with no walls, just floating mirrors in every direction. And in the center, the original. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It looked like Evelyn, perfectly still, eyes closed, hands folded like a corpse ready for burial. But Evelyn knew it wasn't dead. It was waiting. The man with the gray eyes stood behind it now, older still, barely human. "You came farther than the others," he said softly. "You kept your shape longer. You resisted. I didn't choose this. No one does. But the mirror doesn't ask. It invites." She looked at the original Evelyn. It shimmered like it was made of glass. Her own bones ached. Her vision doubled. "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered. "That's how you know you're real," he said. Then he touched the mirror Evelyn, and its eyes snapped open. They were hers, and they were hungry. The hunger behind the eyes. The mirror Evelyn moved without sound. Her feet never touched the black glass floor. She hovered, gliding toward the real Evelyn with a calm that was more terrifying than rage. Her face didn't contort. She didn't snarl. She just smiled that perfect, eerie smile, the kind Evelyn had never been able to master. The man stepped aside as if this was always meant to happen, like this was a ceremony, a ritual, a trade. "Don't let her touch you," he warned, voice hollow. "If she takes even a finger, you'll start forgetting which one you are." Evelyn stumbled back, holding the shard of mirror still clutched from before. The edges had dulled now, like the mirror itself was growing tired. Her body trembled. She could feel the weight of all the other versions watching, floating in the darkness, blinking into existence like stars. They were all her, but none of them were free. The mirror Evelyn whispered, "You've kept me caged. You wore my skin. Now give it back. I didn't ask for this. But you looked. You saw me. That's how it always begins." Suddenly, hands burst from the mirrors around them. Hundreds of hands, all Evelyn's, each grasping, each clawing to pull her into the reflection. The air rippled. The mirrors began to breathe again, each breath deeper, wet, rasping. Evelyn turned and ran, but there was no door anymore. The chamber was endless. The man with gray eyes was gone. She was alone, alone with a thing that looked like her, but moved wrong. It screamed, not a scream of terror, but of hunger. It split its jaw open wide enough to reveal rows of thin, splintered teeth, and from its throat came a second face, his face, bloated and stitched, whispering her name. "Evelyn." She screamed back, but her voice shattered. Literally, her cry burst into glass, echoing as the chamber fractured. Shards flew in every direction. The mirrors cracked, her face in every one, twisted and wrong. Blood ran from her ears. When she opened her eyes again, she was back in her apartment. It was morning. Birds chirped. Coffee brewed. Sunlight spilled across the floor. Her hand was uncut. Her phone was fully charged. Her reflection in the hallway mirror smiled gently. Too gently. She didn't trust it. She approached it slowly. The reflection copied her movements perfectly. But as she leaned in, she saw it. Barely a delay in the blink. Her reflection wasn't her. It was waiting, playing along. She stepped away. But everything else seemed normal until she opened her fridge. Inside, neatly packed, were dozens of small boxes, each labeled, "Memories Evelyn G." She opened one. Inside was her 8th birthday, cake, candles, her mother singing. She opened another. Her first kiss. Another. Her father's funeral. All packed, cataloged, preserved. She dropped the box and heard glass shatter behind her. The mirror cracked, and her reflection still smiling. She ran again, this time out into the street. People passed her like normal, but no one had a face. They wore masks of Evelyn's face, each one different. One laughing, one crying, one stitched shut. They didn't react until she screamed. Then every single head turned, every face smiling now, and one voice from everywhere and nowhere She woke up and still didn't know where she was. She bolted into a nearby store. Mirrors, mirrors everywhere. The shelves stocked with reflections. They didn't show her. They showed her fears. One showed her lying in a hospital bed, hollow-eyed. One showed her drowning in the lake, arms outstretched. One showed her as the mirror Evelyn, laughing while the real her begged. She knocked one over. It shattered into smoke. From the smoke, a hand reached out. Not hers. His, gray-eyed, twisted. He stepped through again. "You've done it now," he said. "Done what?" "Come too far. The reflection isn't behind you anymore. It's ahead of you." She didn't understand until she looked outside. There, walking across the street, was her mirror Evelyn, wearing her coat, carrying her bag, going into her building, living her life. She turned back to the man. "Stop her." "I can't." "You let her in. She's wearing you now." "Then what am I?" He didn't answer, because she already knew. She was the one on the other side now. That night, she stood in front of a public bathroom mirror. She didn't blink, didn't speak, just stared, trying to catch her reflection slipping again. But this time, she was the one out of sync. She tried to raise her hand first, but her reflection was already doing it. Faster, better, more real. It stared back at her like she was a ghost. The mirror shimmered, and a phrase appeared across the surface. "You're the shadow now." And her reflection reached through the glass and knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. Behind her, in the real world, someone answered. Borrowed skins. Evelyn didn't turn around. She couldn't. Not because she was frozen, but because the very air behind her had gone thick, pressing against her spine like a breath she didn't take, like someone else claiming the moment before she could. The mirror in front of her shimmered with faint ripples, as if her reflection had become a pond, and something was swimming underneath. Her reflection was gone, not mimicking her, not reacting, just absent. Only the empty room stared back. And then, slowly, something else emerged. Not her, not fully, just pieces. Her eye, her jawline, her hand, stitched at the wrist. They floated together like broken puzzle pieces, tried to reassemble what was once Evelyn. But something kept slipping, twisting the image each time it nearly formed. Then she heard it again. "Behind you," whispered in her own voice. A cruel, mocking version of it. She turned. No one there. But her bag, her real bag, was missing. So was her phone. She checked her pocket. Inside was a paper she'd never seen. Folded neatly. Old, yellowed, burned on one edge. It read, "Do not follow your face. It lies." Below that, a smear of something red, too dark for ink. She crumpled the note and ran. The city was wrong. Twisted. Buildings stretched too tall, leaning slightly inward like they were listening to her breath. People still walked the streets, but they were wearing her skin, not her face, her actual skin, seamed and poorly fitted. Some too tight, some baggy and drooping, like their bones didn't match the shape they wore. One bumped into her. She gasped. He turned slowly, skin mask sliding sideways to reveal another mouth beneath it. Too wide, too red. "You dropped something," he said, and from his pocket, he held out a mirror shard. It reflected nothing, not even light. She ran again, this time into an alley that hadn't been there yesterday. It ended in a door with no knob, just a tiny slit at eye level. A whisper came through. "Say the name of the one who saved you." She hesitated. His name. The man with the gray eyes. She didn't know it. Not fully. He'd never given it. Only, "Samuel," she whispered. The slit closed. The door creaked open. She stepped through. She entered a long hallway filled with clocks. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All ticking in different tempos. Some moved backward. Some didn't move at all. And on each clock face, her face again. Younger. Older. Dead. Laughing. Screaming. She covered her ears. But the ticking was in her skull. The walls throbbed. Then footsteps. From a far end. Click, click, click. She turned slowly. And there stood Samuel, but not as she remembered him. His reflection shimmered beside him, and they didn't match. The real Samuel looked ragged, sunken-eyed, draped in a coat made of names, stitched into fabric like runes. The reflection? Perfect. Too perfect. Clean. Smiling. "Ho! I didn't think you'd find this place," he said, voice cracked like stone. "Why did you help me?" "I didn't," he said. "I helped her. The first one. The real Evelyn." She felt the floor shift under her. "What am I?" "You're the one who crossed over and forgot to return. The one who lived through the mirror." He reached into his coat, pulled out a small glass orb. Inside, a heartbeat pulsed. "Take it," he said. "It'll keep you anchored." She held it. Her vision blurred instantly. She saw dozens of herself, different timelines, different choices. The Evelyn who never looked in the mirror. The Evelyn who died in the lake. The Evelyn who became Samuel. Each one blinked out, one by one, until only her line remained. The orb melted into her hand. Samuel backed away. "You don't belong here anymore." But neither do they. She turned. The hallway was full now, with the others, her others, crawling from the clocks, stepping from the shadows. One carried a knife. One carried a mirror frame. One carried her voice, bottle-like perfume. They approached slowly, and the ticking stopped. In a blinding second, they rushed her. She screamed. The world fractured. Time shattered. And she stood again, in the diner. Bright daylight. Fresh coffee. Her hands clean. No one noticed her panic. Her phone buzzed on the table. A message. "We made it. We got your body back. But not your soul." She dropped the phone. The waitress came by. Same one from years ago. Except now, she had Evelyn's eyes. "Can I get you anything, sweetie?" Evelyn looked into the spoon. Her reflection was gone. She smiled faintly. "No, I think I've had enough." But outside, in every car window, store glass, rear-view mirror, her reflection watched, waiting, smiling, because it wasn't over. It was only resting. Through her teeth, it spoke. The sky outside turned black at noon. Not gray, not stormy, black, like something had smothered the sun. No clouds, no lightning, just a heavy sheet of absence stretched across the heavens. Evelyn didn't panic this time. She just stood in the diner doorway, staring up, her eyes dry. The reflection had returned. She didn't need a mirror to know it. It was in her bones now. Every breath she took echoed twice in her chest. Once for her, once for it. She walked through the hollow streets, where the people wore skin like coats, some buttoned up all wrong, some dragging behind them like long, dripping cloaks. They didn't look at her anymore. They smelled her, like wolves scenting something familiar, something wrong. She passed a man holding a briefcase full of fingernails, a woman breastfeeding a mirror, and a child dragging a toy that whispered her full name over and over in a sing-song voice. Evelyn Grace Walters. Evelyn Grace Walters. None of them stopped her, because they knew she was one of them now. But not quite. She made her way back to the lake. Not because she expected answers, because she expected someone. He was there again. Samuel. But now. He was crouched at the edge, pulling long threads of light from the water, like spider silk. Each thread shimmered with tiny images, faces, screaming, laughing, whispering. He didn't look up as she approached. "You broke the rules again," he said. "I didn't know there were any left." He sighed. The lake hissed behind him, bubbles rising to the surface. 1, 2, 3. "Every time you come here," he said, "you leave another version of yourself behind." One of them got out. "I know. She's the one walking around in your skin now." "I know." He finally looked up. But this time it wasn't Samuel. It was her father's face, only softer. Too kind. Too wrong. "Stop," she whispered. "You miss this one, don't you?" The not Samuel asked. "You buried him too deep." The mirror remembered. "You didn't. Bring back the real one. None of us are real anymore." Then the face melted. Samuel again, but only mostly. His left eye was cracked glass. His voice distorted. He held up a thread. Want to see what she's doing? Evelyn nodded. The thread twisted. And inside, she saw Mirror Evelyn laughing with friends, wearing her coat, holding hands with someone Evelyn didn't recognize, living, happy, or at least pretending well enough to fool everyone. That's my life, Evelyn hissed. Samuel dropped the thread. It sank like a hook without bait. She's better at it, he said. She doesn't hesitate. She doesn't ask questions. That world wants her more than it ever wanted you. She's not me. She's what you left behind when you stopped being sure. The lake behind them began to sing, low and bone deep, like a choir trapped under ice. A new mirror emerged from the water, tall, oval, framed in thorns. It turned slowly until it faced her. This one showed her true self. Not the body, not the clothes, but the part that was unraveling. Strings of memory pulled loose. Voices nodded in her throat. Names she used to answer to, all gone. Only one thing remained. A voice from behind her own teeth. Soft, sweet, deadly. Let me speak, it whispered. And Evelyn did. The words that came out weren't hers. They weren't in any known language. But the lake responded. It split open, like lips, and from within rose a stairway made of ribs. Downward, always downward. Samuel backed away. You go down there, you don't come back. I'm not here to come back. He didn't argue. He handed her something, an old key, rusted and warm. This won't open any doors. Then what's it for? It reminds you there used to be doors. She nodded, clutched it tight, and began to descend. The ribcage staircase pulsed with each step, like a living thing. The air grew colder, not in temperature, but in intent. She could feel the cold watching her, judging, waiting. At the bottom, darkness. Then a heartbeat, not hers. Too slow, too deep. She reached a vast chamber, a throne, empty, and dozens of mirrors, turned inward, all pointed at the throne like worshippers. One mirror flickered, then another, and then they all lit up at once. Each showed a different Evelyn, each trapped, screaming, raging, crying, laughing. One banged against the glass so hard her forehead split, but she didn't stop. She just kept whispering. We didn't choose this. You did. Another mouthed, take us with you. But Evelyn knew now. She wasn't here to free them. She was here to decide. Behind the throne, a final mirror. This one was blank, waiting. She stepped toward it. The voice behind her teeth giggled. She opened her mouth. It began to speak again. But this time it asked a question. Who are we now? And Evelyn answered. She didn't use words. She used her hand. She placed her palm on the glass. And the mirror began to crack. Not shatter. Crack, like it wasn't breaking, but awakening. Lines spread, veins of light and shadow curling like roots. And from the throne, something began to rise. Not a person, not a monster. A shape made entirely of reflections, moving like water, stitched with eyes and fingers and voices. It saw her. It was her. It smiled. And then it spoke back, with her voice. But not from the mirror, from everywhere. The one wearing her face. The voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once, folding into the walls, the air, the trembling space around her. You've called me, so I've come. It didn't walk, it coalesced. The shape stepped down from the throne, like liquid glass turning solid with each stride. Limbs first, then a head, then a torso that rearranged itself until it looked like Evelyn, but not her now. Her then, her best, the version of her that had never doubted, never fractured, never peered too deep into reflections that weren't meant to be stared at. The others in the mirrors whispered, their faces pressing against the inside of the glass like moths desperate for light. But this place had no light, only selves. And the thing that now stood before her was the one she had always feared most, the one that had watched her for years, quietly mimicking, learning, adjusting, the one that had made her own life better than Evelyn ever could. Evelyn stepped forward. You took everything. The thing smiled with Evelyn's lips flawless, painted, confident. "I didn't take," it replied. "You gave it up when you stared too long, when you stopped believing you were real. You made space. I simply filled it." Behind her, the mirrors shifted again. Some cracked, some cleared, some fell into shadow, taking entire versions of herself with them. The ground pulsed beneath her feet, a heartbeat not hers. Samuel's voice came faintly now, from some unseen place, the last thread she could still feel from the world above. "You can't destroy it. You can only choose." She clenched her fists. "What choice?" The thing tilted its head. "You can become me," it said gently. "Fully step into the mirror. Let me take care of it all. No more fear. No more pain. No more questions. Just existence. Or you fight me. But know this." The thing raised one finger. Each of the mirrors rippled again. And suddenly, Evelyn saw her own memories play like film across the glass, but distorted. Her mother's face was blurred. Her father's voice echoed like it was underwater. Moments she remembered clearly now twisted, corrupted, rearranged. "You're already forgetting," it said, "because I'm keeping your memories safe. You're not strong enough to carry them anymore." Evelyn shook her head, but she was forgetting. She couldn't remember the street she grew up on, or the name of her first pet. Even the feeling of cold water from the lake had become vague, distant, a dream. The mirrors were stealing her, one piece at a time. She turned, spinning wildly. The room was shifting again, longer, taller. The ribcage staircase vanished. The mirrors turned inward now, all facing her. And the thing wearing her face stepped behind her like a shadow and whispered, "You're not Evelyn anymore. I am." She fell to her knees. And in that moment, the world quieted. She could hear only her own breath. But it wasn't hers. It was too calm, too rehearsed. She screamed, not with her voice, but with everything else. And the mirrors cracked again. A scream that wasn't sound but identity. And something inside one of the mirrors shattered completely. Not glass, but truth. A ripple. A single memory returned, clear, crisp, uncorrupted. Her as a child, standing in front of a cracked mirror, drawing a mustache on her face with lipstick and laughing so hard she fell over. A tiny laugh burst from her lips, raw and real. The thing behind her faltered. "What was that?" it asked, frowning. Evelyn stood, slowly. "That was me. Something you'll never have. The part that can't be mimicked." The thing hissed. It lunged. Its hands reached for her throat. But Evelyn didn't back away. She stepped into it and whispered, "Then let's see who survives." They collided. The chamber exploded into glass storms, shards raining upward, sideways, folding into loops of frozen time. The walls howled. The throne split open, revealing not a seat, but a well of pure reflection, pulling them both in. And Evelyn fell, not down, but through every version of herself she had ever been. The girl with the scraped knees, the teen crying behind a locked bathroom door, the woman standing silent at her father's funeral, the one who laughed, the one who lost, the one who wondered if she had ever been real at all. They merged. They screamed. They chose. And when the light finally burst, Evelyn opened her eyes. Not in the chamber, not in the diner, not even in the mirror, but standing in her apartment, alone. Everything looked normal, but her reflection was gone. Still, empty. She approached the mirror, took a deep breath, then raised her hand. Her reflection returned the gesture, perfectly in sync. And yet, her eyes glimmered with something new. A question, a warning, a memory. She touched the glass. It was cold, but not hungry. Behind her, a voice whispered from the closet, "Which one are you?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to, because for now, she was both.